Welcome back. It's still Business Morning on Channels Television. Join the conversation here on the program via the social media community. Our list of Twitter handles at Channels TV or at Biz Morning and at Harriet Agbenyi. Well, the National Bureau of Statistics overnight released inflation data for the month of May, and we're talking about that, showing a 0.3 percentage points increase from the 8.7% rate recorded in April. And according to the technical advisor to the statistician general, he's been explaining that there was an increase late rains, which actually hampered harvest and fuel scarcity, and so this affected food prices, transportation of food from the various points. And he's also expecting to see a muted kind of results in the next figure that we'll be expecting in June. We'll keep our eye on that. On a month-on-month basis, however, the headline index increased by 1.1%. It's the largest month-on-month increase recorded since June 2012. We're still talking about data now. The Bureau of Statistics on Wednesday, in its Job Creation and Employment Generation Survey, reported that over 469,000 jobs were created in the first quarter of the year, 26.95% more than the number of jobs created in the last quarter of 2014. Now, the informal sector generated the highest number, 332,403. It's followed by the public sector with 130,941, while the public sector created 5,726 jobs. Mike Adele, he's a human capital development consultant. He's here with me in the studio to analyze this data. Good morning to you, Mike, and thank you for joining me on the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Let's just quickly get your thoughts. What do you make of these numbers?
I think it's remarkable, a great number. We are beginning to see real statistics of quarter to quarter, month by month, that we normally see in other climes to tell us exactly what's going on in the employment sector. For me, it's a great number, but again, I always have my own reservation. And my reservation is always like, where do we find out those data? How does those data been collated? What mechanism have been used? For example, they might have their own data or their own mechanism of getting those data, but we, the ordinary Nigerian, doesn't understand how those data has been collected. Now, if we have data collecting centers in regions, in communities, in the states, where everybody could actually or easily go there to have access to this figure, then fantastic. Now, the figures that we have in here, 469,070, obviously is a great figure. But my worry is those figures might drop by the minute. If you look at the informal sector, which has the largest number of employment, 352,000 plus, yeah? Now, if you look at that figure, now going to the formal sector as well, 130,941. Now, if you look critically, because I've been part of some of these programs where they will tell you where these figures have been generated. Now, most of these figures, I can tell you, came out from this, what's it called, the Graduate Internship Scheme, the GIS program. Now, the reason why I'm saying I'm scared of how this number is going to be dropping day by day is majority of this number, in their thousands, right? They're actually being absorbed by both the formal sector and the informal sector. But in the last 3, 4, 5 months, they've not been paid their stipend, their monthly stipends. Now, and I can see, I did a survey last month, and a chunk number of them are beginning to leave their employment, right, because they've not been paid their stipend by the government.
So that means that number we're seeing leaving that sector is going into the informal sector, which is why the numbers have swollen.
Absolutely, even the formal sector as well. Because if you look into the telecommunication, you look into the... Let's talk about the public institution, for example. This is another area where they actually absorb a large number of these GIS graduates.
Yeah, so by looking at the data we see there, we've seen, over about 1,000 or thereabout increase, almost 1,000, from 4,387 to 5,726.
Yeah, for my survey, like I said, for my survey, I mean, most of these numbers actually been generated from the GIS program. Now, every day, these people are leaving their jobs because they're not being paid. So, a great figure, that's on that side. But how do we move forward? how do we, there are a lot of mechanisms that needs to be looked into to actually make sure that this number has not just been dropping, but increasing by the day, creating more employment for the people.
So let's talk about creating more employment for the people. And we're noticing that for the informal sector, it had the largest number, almost 335,000. And it was attributed to the fact that there was a boost in economic activity because of the elections. So now the elections are over.
Yeah.
How do we sustain and even grow this number that we're seeing?
I think we need to begin to look into, like the current administration actually mentioned, that we're going to be looking into agriculture, looking into mining and some other sector of the economy as well. Now, the election that just gone created large volume number of people on a temporary basis. Now, like you said, the election is gone, it's over, and all these people going to go back home. Some people have been engaged with INEC, some with other political parties. Now, all this has been over now, and they're all going to go back home. Now, this number, that's why I keep saying, that this number that we see now, they're going to begin to drop day by the day. So we need to begin to look into what do we have to do now, what mechanisms do we have to create to actually begin to create more employment into the society.
So in creating more jobs, you talked about the survey that you did looking at the GIS program. And we know we have the UWIN program as well, where there's the Short P. The Short P has actually been having a couple of issues. Now, do you think that we need more job creation initiatives and programs, or should the ones that are already in place be sustained and given more boost, so to speak?
Thank you very much. I think, I should think that this new administration wouldn't be like what we used to have in the past, whereby when a new government comes into place, they will forego the other projects and programs that their predecessors actually put in place. Now, I hope this new government will actually absorb, either continue the GIS program and the UWIN program, or, I don't know how they're going to do it, but absorb them into their own program, if they have one, to actually continue to make sure that the purpose and the reason why we're putting these people into this employment to train is actually being sustainable. Now, one of the reasons, like I keep advocating, I mean, we have a large number of people who wouldn't be able to get employment because they lack work experience. Now, one of my advocacy in this country is quite very simple. I think the government, I've said it severally, the government needs to begin to institutionalize voluntary work. I've said this so many times. What do I mean by this? Now, for an employer to take on, it doesn't matter if you could come out from a university with a first class. That's theoretically. But practically, what can you do? Now, if you come to me for an employment, I'm not going to have to look into you because obviously you're not going to add value to my business. I'm going to have to train you. I'm going to have to mentor you. I'm going to have to manage you. I'm going to have to create space for you, everything you're going to use. Now, it would take me about 6 months, statistically, for you to begin to add value to my business. So why will I be training you? Why will I be mentoring you, managing you, give you everything for 6 months?
I'm still paying you salary.
And I'm still paying you salary. That is why employers are not taking on people without experience. So when this government, the last government came into place and said, okay, let's create this avenue. Now, it's an avenue whereby I actually, honestly, I was quite really, impressed when this program came into being. Let all these people begin to go to employers. They would take them on. They would train them for them to acquire skills. At the end of the one-year program, two things happen. It's either if you're good, if you're productive, if you're loyal, if you're dedicated, that employer might keep you on and say, okay, now we could see your value, we're going to employ you. That is automatic employment. Even if they don't employ you, on your resume, you will be able to say, okay, I've worked with this company for 1 year, so I have an experience. That is on the GIS or the UWIN program. But on the voluntary work, which is quite very important, right? You see, it's a culture that is not practiced in this climb. Now, in other climb, obviously, from A levels, they begin to write application to industry, to institutions, and say, I want to do voluntary work anytime I'm on holidays. Now, here, they will tell you, I know the economy is not fantastic, it's not great, but people will tell you, how can I go and work for free? Who's going to pay my transport, my feeding, my clothing, and everything? But it's a price you have to pay now and reap later. Because if you begin to do voluntary work right from your universities, days, by the time you go 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, by the time you're going to be finishing, you will have created an avenue for yourself with those employers you're working with, and they will have spotted the quality inside of you. So by the time you're going to be finishing, they'll probably will say to you, okay, when you graduate, come and work with us. Even if they don't do that, on your CV you could tell people that, okay, I've worked within this number of years with a number of employers. And they won't tell you you don't have particular experience. So the parents got to get involved. Parental influence. Parents should begin. You say you can't force people to do voluntary work. But the awareness, tell people the benefit of it when they start it now and the work what they're going to get in the future.
But then, Mike, they will quickly point out to you that, yes, the benefits are there in future, but you've just, highlighted the fact that there are challenges. So how am I going to get funds to get from point A to point B, feed myself, and also cater for myself, so to give the impression that I'm even well put together to be as productive as I need to be. I'm really willing to learn, and I'm going to forget about the challenges, the fact that I don't have money to transport myself, money to feed myself, or money to buy my clothes. And do you think with all of that probably, maybe, just maybe, a scheme should be introduced that will be like a social safety net for young ones, for youths, the population, a very large number of people in the informal sector, for them to keen to benefit from, to encourage them to become voluntary workers?
We already, I think we in the last government and this government, I think we already have the schemes. Now, the last one had what we call this GIS program. They're giving them stipend, 30,000 every month. That's one of it. The current government had another scheme or a similar scheme that says, I think they said, is it 10,000? They're going to give on every unemployed people in the country. That is the scheme. So that scheme could, sustain or assist people when they go do those voluntary work. So it's a great tool scheme is in place now, so we don't have to look elsewhere. The schemes are here already. So let's begin to tap into them and let the government begin to use those avenues, appropriately for everybody to be able to create. This is the scheme, I'm going to tap into it and benefit from it.
So from your own expectations now, do you think that the numbers that we've seen from the informal sector will continue to grow, or do you think it's going to drop? And if it is going to drop, which sector do you see beginning to absorb the numbers from the informal sector increase? Because you see, we have the numbers from the, I beg your pardon, mixing it up here. Yes, from the formal sector, we have 130,941. From the public sector, we have 5,726. Now, the highest was the informal sector, as you know, we're looking at the data and it's showing us. So if for any reason something happens from what you've just said, from your analogy, there's going to be like maybe an absorption into the public sector or the formal sector. Which one do you see witnessing an increase the next time around when the MBS does a survey?
I think it depends on the policy in place. Now, if the government has promised to tackle power issue in this country, if that happens, then I can tell you both sectors we gain momentum. That's the public and the formal and the the informal and the formal sector.
Okay.
But the informal sector will gain more because there are a lot of people who practices or who goes into micro economy and who actually goes into self-employment. Once we have those mechanisms in place for them to practice their trade, you will have more large number of them in the informal sector boosting the economy, which is the base of every vibrant economy.
Mike, thank you so much for joining me on the program today and sharing your perspectives.
My pleasure.
Mike Adeleye is a consultant. He's a human capital development consultant. Joins us and shared his thoughts on the numbers from the MBS job creation survey. We turn our attention to the maritime sector after this break. Kunle Folarin, Chairman, Nigerian Ports Consultative Council, joins me in the studio after this.